This is For Advisors by Advisors. I'm your host, Evan J. Mayer, and today we have a very special guest, a coach of mine, actually, and Mr. Rob Cressy. What's going on, Rob?
Look at all this fancy sounds. I love what you're doing. Super excited to be here, Evan.
Yeah, awesome. So Rob is a personal growth coach and a podcast coach and a bunch of other things on his resume. If you go to robcressy.com, you can kind of see everything he's up to. But, interesting story on how I met Rob. My wife is hosting a girls' sorority party get-together at her house, and we're in the pool. And you never know what the husband's going to be like of a friend of your wife's. Half the time, for those that are out there, sometimes it can suck. Well, Rob was really interesting, and he goes, you got a good voice. You ever think about podcasting? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, that's what I do. And we went through some dialogue, and I said to Rob, I'll give you a call. I'm waiting on some sort of contract to come through in the next couple weeks, and if it doesn't, maybe I'll go down this path and do it myself. And I think within 48 hours, I called Rob, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to wait for that contract. I think we're just going to go forward. And we started working together the next day.
And Evan, that single decision is what separates you as a high performer from 99.9% of the people out there. Because the majority of the people say, oh, I've been thinking about it for so long, or they create some excuse or self-limiting belief for why, air quotes, the timing just isn't right. I'll do it later. I'll do it someday. But you clearly saw the opportunity and the belief in yourself and your ability to help other people where you're like, wait a second, no, I'm going to do this now. And that mindset is one I wish I could bottle up and give to everybody else who has thought about this, because what everybody fails to realize is this is a platform for growth. We don't do this and make excuses or are super lame about this. No, we're growing our business and helping people. Boom, let's plow forward. So in the name of forward growth and momentum, we don't sit there and say, why not? Because by design, all we do is say, let's go.
Yeah. In my situation, I was doing this for fun. And you had said, well, that's the only reason to do it. And you were right, because, while this was never meant to make money, the concept was there are no advisors that are talking real street talk to other advisors or other people in the business that could make us better. And maybe people are wondering why we're on this podcast. And I thought, I'm doing this podcast. I really enjoy it. I love doing it. There's a lot of people out there that might want to do that for clients or might want to do that for other people out there. Or in one of the circumstances, I think me and you discussed, there was another advisor you were working with that wanted to create a podcast that had nothing to do with his business whatsoever. It was just a hobby, a show that he had created. So I thought it'd be great to have you on the show and kind of go through a little bit about what you do for people and your history in doing it. And I think is the podcast coaching thing, is that somewhat of a newer thing you've journeyed down, or have you been doing that already for a while?
I've been doing this for a long time because 12 plus years ago, I left my corporate job to go all in at being a full-time creator and entrepreneur. And someone said something to me that changed the rest of my life. They said, Rob, if you ever hope to get paid to do what you love, you better be doing it already. I wanted to get paid to talk about sports for a living. So how do you do that? Well, among other things, you teach yourself how to be a host, how to create a podcast, how to be on camera, social media marketing, audio and video editing. So for me, the reason that I'm so passionate about this and the reason that I've done this so long and coach others is because my dreams were always on the other side of me, a microphone and a camera, because I wanted to get paid to do something. But of course, my journey has evolved since then. And Evan, what really happened is once I was a pioneer in podcasting, and I did this before it was air quotes cool or more mainstream, was leading by example. People would be like, how did you do this? How did you do this? How did you do this? Until 100 times it happened. And I'm like, yo, we're good. How about I just create a program to help you guys along the way? So I created two options. One, a digital version that has an easy to follow course to take you from zero to launching your podcast. Or number two, which is a hybrid approach, which is you got the same platform, but now you're talking with me as we build and design your show.
And what was interesting, I think initially we had gone over some kind of package ideas on how we would get the podcast set up and what was the better way for us to learn. Was it the extreme level of like one-on-one coaching, doing that for 8 hours, over a 2-month period, or was it the video sessions? And I got to be honest with you, the content that you created on the video segment was for me, as somebody that can kind of move at my own pace, which we had talked about the podcast, and I think you had said to me, what can you commit to? And I said, well, one a week, thinking that was a little scary. And we're at episode 25 within 2 months. So it's obviously progressed into a thing of its own. But what I loved about the videos is that I can move at my own pace. And then almost, I think we kind of created a quasi approach. Maybe that's not one of your normal schedules, but it really worked for me because I was able to kind of look through the videos and then have that once a week call with you and say, hey, I got this from the video, but is there maybe a different way to do it that I'm not thinking about?
Yeah, and I loved speed of implementation from you because one of the things that I coach on is implement at the speed of instruction. So if you want to do this thing, how quickly can we do it? By design, I pace it out because not everybody is all in like you are. But when you are all in, this is where the one-on-one conversation comes in. And this is actually something both for your audience as well as my mindset around business and how you can use content. Because when those 100 people asked me how I launch a podcast, I was tired of having the same conversation over and over and over again. I wanted to scale myself and my knowledge to help people create what it is that they want. But then when you layer on the personalized side of things, I don't have to go back and say, Evan, did you do X, Y, and Z? You can say, Rob, here's some nuances that I want to know about. So now we're leveling up in being more valuable with our time. So if you think about someone listening or watching right now, and everything you do is a reflection of your brand. So whether you think about this as your clients, your employees, people who are followers of you, you want to scale your knowledge and your thought leadership and find ways to help others. Well, the simplest way to do that is to record yourself either on video or on audio, and then you send it out to whatever the distribution is to allow you to not always have to be there to do everything. So certainly, Evan, in the world that you operate in, there's a lot of people who know a lot of different things, but so often that knowledge is siloed. Imagine increasing the flow of communication for your team or to your clients by saying, hey, once a week, once a day, I've got a quick little 3 to 5 minute vignette of something that I'm going to share with everybody else. Boom, you rinse and repeat that into perpetuity. Number one, it's going to stand out because almost nobody else is doing it. But number two, logically, this is how communication improves, which means you're going to get greater performance.
Yeah, and I think that goes to speak to a lot of the advisors that are out there, and some of the people that I've actually interviewed on the show are financial advisors that really want to start using social media. And I think where Rob or a coach like Rob can come in handy is on how to implement that. Now, for me personally, I'm not at a spot where I'm looking to do any of this for referral flow. I'm doing this more for the excitement and entertainment of interviewing people and asking the questions that I really want to ask and that I think other advisors would want to ask. But I think what I think would be a good idea for advisors that are out there that either want to create their own show or their own concept, or for clients' expectations on what to produce for them. Let's talk about how easy this is. I think let's not go too high level. So literally, like as simple as you need basically 5 or 6 pieces of equipment to start, right, Rob?
I will make this as easy as humanly possible. All a podcast is a recorded audio conversation. That is it. So if you just wanted to take your phone and say, hey, what's up? This is Rob. I want to give you one nugget of wisdom today. Boom, in and out in 1 minute. That is a podcast. So remove what you think it has to be, because where everybody gets tripped up is they're like, yeah, but I want all these cool sounds in an intro and I want all this perfection. No, what they fail to realize is that's what the first 20 episodes of your podcast is for. Like riding a bike, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So what I really recommend for anyone who's going to start, number one, you buy a microphone. It's like $100 or less. Why? Because audio quality, this is going to get you to 95 out of 100 so that you're not a negative. Remember, everything you do is a reflection of your brand, including your podcast, which is one of the reasons why you do it. But boom, you get good audio quality and you're not going to notice the difference between a 95 and 100. So boom, you're good there. And then you can just use Zoom. You hit record. It can be just you. It can be you and anybody else. It can be the webinars you do. It can be your team. There is literally no rules to this. And we think that we need to put ourselves into a box for what this should be. I'm telling you, you can create a 1-minute podcast, a 20-minute podcast, an hour-long podcast, a solo podcast, 10 people on a podcast, you name it. It is super simple when you understand all you have to do is press record.
And it's interesting for the advisors out there that are using LinkedIn or, platforms like that. It used to be you can only put something on there for 30 seconds. I mean, I've literally posted some clips of some shows where I really wanted to show the 5 or 6 minutes and I didn't want to cut it down to the 3 minutes, even though that might be better on a more view standpoint. But you can do that on LinkedIn. You can go and post a 5-6 minute video on how something works and get significant attention by doing so. And we're seeing advisors doing that left and right. But it's funny because not spending the $100 on the microphone, which makes you sound so much better, the camera or the light, which is an extra $50 each or something like that. When you talk about how you're actually going to be using it, there's not really much money that has to go towards it to make yourself and your brand look better.
Yeah, really, Evan, we're looking at, for somebody who's listening to this podcast right now, it's definitely less than $500. It can be less than $300 to do this, to significantly change the appearance of your brand. And I want to make sure there's two things about podcasting, which is why I highly recommend doing it. Number one, and Evan, you just talked about this, depth of conversation. So often what we see in the world of social media is very surface level, but being in an industry that you are, you can speak very natively and niche to a specific topic or an industry overall. So that 5 minutes, yeah, there might be fewer people who see it, but you care about somebody who listens to that whole thing or a good majority of it because you're actually helping them on their journey. Because number two, the reason you do a podcast is relationship capital. So often people fall into the trap of I care about my downloads. I don't. I build relationships two ways. One, with my guests. Two, with the audience that I'm building by sharing the thought, leadership, and knowledge and wisdom that I have about whatever it is that I'm talking about. You rinse and repeat this. And Evan, both of us know this on the relationship capital side of things. That's how partners, deals, new team members will happen organically because there's Evan, there's Evan, there's Evan, there's Evan, just over and over and over again. For me, I've been doing this thing for thousands of episodes. All of a sudden, people get to know who you are because I see you everywhere because you're always top of mind.
Yeah, and I think you're 100% right. The concept of being out there and just putting yourself out there for a minute or two or three every once or twice a week. And the downloads are funny because there's a competitive nature to what the average podcast is doing or how they're downloading. My favorite thing is there was a guy last night who I'm literally out to dinner with my kids, and he texted me, never heard of the guy before, never met him before. And he's like, hey, I was listening to your podcast. Just want to let you know I've listened to every one of them. I'm a huge fan and I can't wait for the next one to come out. And it was one of those messages. And it was just like, it was neat in the concept that you touched somebody. So even if you didn't touch 10,000 likes, but 50 advisors listened to your podcast and learned something about the industry or how to do something better with a client, that was just so fulfilling.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I always talk about. I say, if you have something inside of you that can help even one person, it is your duty to share it with the world, because we've all been in situations where we've got something on our mind, a challenge, a problem, or we want to be a part of a community. And there was someone there, someone's voice to say, I got you. I speak your language. Let me help you with what's going on in your mind. And so often we allow the macro nature, I want to be Joe Rogan, to get into the way of saying, man, imagine if there was 50 people right now in your office. You'd be like, holy crap, there's a ton of people here right now. Yeah, that's what 50 downloads is like. 25 people. So you keep chopping that down, but know that if you can have an impact on one person, it's all worth it. And you know why? You never know who that one person is. And Evan, the thing that really changed my life for this was, I don't know, it was like 5 years ago. I'm at Grant Cardone's 10X Growth Conference down in Miami at Marlin Stadium. And it's day one of this event. So we're in the concourse and they're like, hey, everybody, get your seats in 10 minutes. The event's about to start. So I'm walking there and I've been publishing content consistently on LinkedIn and all platforms for years. And all of a sudden, a guy comes up to me and he's like, hey, are you Rob Cressy? I'm like, yeah, what's up, man? He goes, I love watching your videos on LinkedIn. I've always drank my own Kool-Aid. I've always believed that this works. When somebody in a different state out of nowhere came up to me like you got Evan there, in that moment, I said, I am never questioning if this works, because remember, there's a silent majority and a vocal minority for everything that you do. But when that vocal minority comes up and texts you or says what's up at an event, you're like, whoa. And that's the power of how it works. And that's also why so many people don't do it, because they're not willing to trust in the process of results that you can't see.
Talk a little bit about being yourself. It's funny. When I started the podcast 25 episodes ago, I was nervous. I had a lot of stuttering, a lot of ums, a lot of you knows, all these like verbal miscues. And as the episodes went on, you said, Evan, doesn't matter. Just keep recording, because I think you said once you get past 10, you're going to see a significant difference. And it was funny because I saw a significant difference at 5, 10, 15, 20. And as I listened to the podcasts, the old ones, yeah, they do make you cringe a little bit, right? Because you're thinking that was me, but also it should put a smile on your face, because it also means you grew that much more from where you were at.
Yeah, and I've actually got a tip that can help you and anybody else right now on how to be a more polished and eloquent speaker simply. So I want you to think about everyday interactions. So, for example, you're in line at Starbucks and you order a coffee, and what do they say? What is your name? Well, sometimes they'll go, Rob. And I'm like, wait a second. Why did I just say in between my name? I know they're going to ask this. I know my name is Rob. The thing that's happening is I'm not allowing an extra half of a second to go through and think and then respond. So when we're talking about the ahs and ums and being a more eloquent speaker, Evan, a lot of times is we're not comfortable in silence or slowing our pacing down to get something across. So instead, what I want you to do is anytime you're in a situation where you know it's going to be a very simple question, and I love doing it at Starbucks because I know they're going to ask me my name, just say, hey, what is the name for this order? The name of this order is Rob. And you're like, it sounds so dumb and so simple, but the number of times that this will happen, what this really does is step one, you're more aware of this happening in your life now. So if you're like, I want to be better as a speaker, all right, I've heightened the awareness of being a better speaker. Where are the opportunities for me to do that? Oh, when somebody asks me a question, cool. I'm going to slow down for a second on something that I know is super simple, and I'm going to do it. And then after you say your name correctly, strangely, a little smile will go on your face. You're like, yeah, I can say my name without stuttering.
How easy.
Right.
It's funny too. It reminds me, about once every 4 or 5 days, I'll go onto LinkedIn and I'll see that there's this one guy, and I'm not going to name him because I honestly don't remember his name, but he's doing this video and he's got the microphone and he's got the headset on. And it's funny because he's got the mic, he's speaking out of this mic, but he's got this mic. And this mic is obviously just for aesthetic look. And he is speaking into the camera, so trying to be so perfect and elegant, but it's so insincere because it's just not him. And what I love about some of the people that, you know, and it's a lot of advisors, again, what we do on the show is it's for advisors. So I'm really focusing on financial advisors that are out there. What a difference being authentic is to not being authentic, and having your own voice and using your own voice.
And I think having your own voice is something that you grow into, that happens once you put yourself out there. And one tip that I recommend for everyone is to write down, my voice sounds like. And the reason that you do this is because now you've even further defined. So I'm brand safe and witty, but not vulgar. And I'm wise and good vibes. And you can have a beer with me at the bar. I'm not cynical, but I am not opposed to being a contrarian. Like all these, so you literally define what your voice sounds like. And you're like, oh, well, why is that important? Because now you're being more intentional about the building of your brand. And I deal with a lot of clients or high performers that perfection is something that they struggle with. And I've got a client right now who, knock on wood, is launching their podcast on October 31st. But they've been working with me for months on launching their podcast, and they re-recorded 10 episodes twice. Why? Because they're a perfectionist. And it got to the point where I said, well, there's two things. One, done is better than perfect, and perfection is the enemy of greatness. And so many people don't have the self-awareness to understand, like you, Evan, where 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, you're going to improve. And one of the things that I teach my clients to do when it comes to content creation is what I call creating imperfect content. So I'm a master creator on all platforms. I left my old life to live a life of being a creator. So learning to love imperfect content. Well, what in the world does that mean? It doesn't mean that you're going to create a piece of content next to railroad tracks where you can't hear anything and it's all fuzzy and you didn't wipe your lens. No, it's about understanding, number one, what is my quality filter for what I know is passable? And then number two becomes, I'm okay with everything not being perfect. And this is more about a spirit of the game than it is checking all of these boxes, because for me, speed is so important in content creation. Evan, look at how many episodes you guys have created. Some people are going to sit there and be like, oh, this episode has to be perfect, and this has to be perfect, and this has to be perfect. No, throw that in the trash. When you learn to love imperfect content, you're going to help a lot more people because you're going to share a lot more things, and you're going to still know, you know what, this is good enough.
And to be honest with you, the things that we think are so imperfect, probably unnoticeable to many. I'm guessing that person that took months and months to come up with their first podcast, that had to drive you nuts, because your whole principle is get it out there. And it doesn't matter what you do. And while I hated the advice when I was initially going through it, because I was saying, if people are going to hear me stutter like that, or they're going to hear me repeat myself like that, I'm going to come across like an idiot and they're not going to follow me going forward. That's a complete untruth, because that just gets you started and gets you better and better at this craft. And it's the only way you can go about it. You can't go into this craft being great, not speaking, and just all of a sudden creating a podcast and being phenomenal on episode 1.
Yeah, it is very challenging when you work with someone who's all in and I want to make this the best, but then they allow their own impossible standard to stop them from actually seeing the results that will happen when the thing is live and launched. And Evan, what this is really about, and this sort of bridges what I do on the content side from the personal growth coaching side of things, it's all about the story you tell yourself. Because when you're just starting out, the story is, everybody notices every little thing about me. I'm not good enough. Who am I to be doing this? Nobody wants to hear from me. How am I using my time? Is this the best use of this? And it's just a bunch of head trash that we tell ourselves because we're not seasoned enough to understand how to control the story that we tell ourselves. It changed my life when I learned this, so much so that it's foundational in my coaching program, both the podcasting and the mindset side. Because imagine every single day showing up and reading and speaking out loud the most powerful version of yourself every single day. I'm a force of attraction. I'm a revenue generating juggernaut. I am always in focus. I'm the happiest person on earth, shining my light on everyone. Well, why is this important? Because the entire world is going to throw at us fear, judgment, self-limiting beliefs, in comparison, nonstop. That's what the news and the media and social media is designed to do. Then we're going to do new things that we've never done before that by design are challenging. And it can be challenging to do new things and create a story in your head that says, you know what, you're absolutely amazing. You're the best at what you do. But that's why the top 1% of 1%, what we do is we create a process for showing up as the best version of ourselves every single day. We define that story, no different than defining our brand voice. We write it down so that we know who we are, and you speak it out loud every single day to create and make that alive in yourself. So the same can be true for the building of your brand, whether you're on video or doing a podcast. Control that story. So you just write down, why am I doing this? I'm doing this to help other people in the finance industry create or achieve whatever it is they want, financial freedom or a better team. Boom. You read that every single day. It doesn't matter all these judgments that aren't serving you. Oh, by the way, why would we listen to that? That's just loser talk.
Well, and eventually that goes away, right? Like eventually that goes away where, my fear today is, I'm booked up through November and December, but now January, am I going to get some interesting people on in January? So to me, the conversations are always interesting. And you brought up the point of not showing the imperfections because people could criticize you. And I thought of this analogy as you were talking. You know, Michael Jordan, arguably, I don't even think it's arguably, the best basketball player to ever play the game, used to stick his tongue out when he would dunk. And he did that for years. And early on, people were kind of like, what's he doing with his tongue sticking out like that? But then when me and you were kids, roughly the same age, and we were going out and playing basketball, we would stick our tongues out because that was cool, because Jordan did it, right? And so an imperfection could end up becoming something that's part of somebody's perfection.
Yeah, Kathy Ireland's mole.
Yeah.
Remember, speaking of the same era that we were growing up in, and of course, I played basketball in my backyard with my tongue hanging out. And I guess I'll even throw another Michael Jordan analogy here. One of the declarations I speak out loud to create my story every single day is, I am fearless. And there's a quote, and I'm paraphrasing, from Michael Jordan that I feel every single day. He goes, I'm fearless because I know the work I've put in. And when you know the work that you've put in, there's nothing to fear. And so often people can create the different narrative. So as it goes to the building of your brand, all right, I know the more work that I put in, the more episodes that I publish, the better I'm going to get. Therefore, as you're saying, Evan, the story changes in your head, and people work with people like me to accelerate the speed in which that happens. And the quicker that I can change in your head that you are amazing just from the simple fact that you haven't even done this yet, boom, that's what I want to create for you. That spirit inside of you that you can help others, that you can build this brand, that this will be a powerful thing for you.
Absolutely. Rob, in closing, I think people got to know how to get a hold of you, not only for podcasts, but coaching. What's the best way to reach you?
A few different ways, Rob at robcressy.com. I'll send you my phone number, 513-238-8219, or go to robcressy.com. I'm very relationship oriented, so certainly anybody coming from Evan's world, I would love to talk to. And really, I want to help people become the best versions of themselves. And I reverse engineered everything that I did on the brand building and content side and the personal growth and mindset side. And I love being a champion for people who want to do amazing things in the world. So if that's you, hit me up.
It's awesome. Rob, thanks so much for coming on. Again, learned so much from you. Only took us 3 or 4 sessions and we were rocking and rolling. And I thought people probably wondered, how did you go and create this? And did you just do it on your own? And the answer is while a lot of the work was on our own, a lot of the knowledge came from Rob. So Rob, thank you. Thanks for coming on today. And I hope people contact you because I know the inspiration you've been in helping me get this thing launched. So
thanks, my friend.
Awesome. All right. For those of you out there, you know how to get in touch with me. Do so. Hit me up on LinkedIn. And if you want me to get you connected with Rob, I'd be happy to make an introduction. Take care, and I look forward to the next one.